Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to Austria once again and we're going to have a look at yet another of the Hans beers. So first and foremost, a massive shout out and thank you to my Austrian beer mule, Hans Feigl, living in Vienna. And it's thanks to him that you guys are going to get to now enjoy a steady stream of Austrian beer reviews on the channel. As I've told you before, there are some really good Austrian beers and breweries out there these days, but unless you're actually in the country itself, it can be incredibly difficult to get a hold of them. You might have seen that recently Hans organised me a lovely box of Viennese microbrewed Vienna lagers, and it's been really interesting to work my way through these actually over the last couple of videos. So looking forward to reviewing more Austrian beers for you here on the channel. I hope that you guys enjoy this series as well. And a massive thank you once again to Hans for making this review and the other Austrian ones possible. I'm looking forward to more of these in the future. But yeah, for this review then, we are going to go to another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. We're also going to take a step back from the Vienna lagers at the moment to try something a wee bit different, which I'm very curious about. And I'm hoping that this one turns out to be as good as the other beers we've had from Hans so far. But yeah, we're going to stick to Vienna for this one. And this time we are going to go to Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty. So this particular beer is called the 10er Ziegel, or the 10th brick if you want to translate it into English. It comes in at 4.8% ABV, and this one is a Helles Kellerbier according to what they say. So yeah, Helles of course means that it's going to be a sort of light blonde coloured thing, and a Kellerbier tends to be a more kind of yeasty lager actually. I'm sure those styles originate in Franconia in the north of Bavaria. But yeah, it's not often that you come across a beer that is specifically called a Helles Kellerbier. But yeah, very, very curious to see how it turns out. Fingers crossed it's another good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it. So let's get started with the review then. So, as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for the Austrian beers that I'm reviewing for you, and that's being added to quite regularly at the moment because we're working our way through the Hans beers, and I'm sure we'll add more to that list in the future beyond those as well. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty then, on to my brewery notes. So Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty are based in the Favoriten district of Vienna, which is kind of to the southeast of the main central part of the city, and the company was founded by Martin White and Simon Latzer, and they opened back in 2018. So the pair have apparently been friends for around 10 years. Martin is originally from England, as you could probably tell by his name. But apparently he brewed a little bit back in his student days in university. But around the same time in 2014, they were both given Simple Brewing and the Kits Brew in the Bag stuff as presents, and they just gradually got deeper into the hobby and started brewing together. So 4 litres apparently became 10 litres quite quickly, and then they ended up with a 50 litre, quite expensive home brewing kit. But they organised some tastings of their beers, they received very positive feedback, and at this point they decided that they were going to turn professional, draw up a business plan and register the company. So the company name, Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty, it takes its name from the Vienna Margareten district, and this is the 5th district of Vienna. Apparently what you'll realise very quickly is when you're researching Viennese breweries, they seem to be obsessed with the number, the district number and the district name and things like this. I'm not sure exactly why, but yeah, Vienna Margareten is the 5th district of the city, and this has the postcode 1050, but this was where both of them started their home brewing experiments. But the brewery is now based in Favoriten, which is the 10th district of Vienna, and this is another reason for them choosing this name. So yeah, 1050 is the postcode though of Margaretan, where they started homebrewing, which is pretty cool. But the brewery can be found in the Ankerbroodfabriek, which is the Anker bread factory, or the Anker bakery, I guess you could call it. It's equipped with a 20 hectolitre kit from PBC Systems in England. And these ones, when you look at the pictures of this kit, it's one of these ones that's got the kind of wood lining around it. So it's actually a kind of English looking brewery. It's an English setup that they're using to brew quite a few different beers, and it's quite interesting, so do check out some pictures of that. But they launched their first beers in May of 2018, and then they opened the tap room at the brewery in the August of that year as well. But both Martin and Simon are still working their regular 40-hour jobs on top of running the brewery as well. But as of July 2021, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, these guys have produced 25 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and they've got the on-site tap room that I mentioned a minute ago, and this opens from Wednesday to Friday. So yeah, pretty cool actually. Hopefully when I get down to Vienna at some point I can go and check it out. It would be nice to film a little out and about video there, and if we can meet up with the guys as well to film an interview, that could be quite interesting actually. A meet the brewery segment would be quite cool to film with these guys. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty for the moment. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is it for your history section for the moment. Let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer itself. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. As you can see, it's quite nice. There you can see that is the Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty company symbol there, which is nice. 4.8% Helles Kellerbier, this one, as I said, 330ml can. And yeah, I think this should be interesting. As we mentioned earlier, 10er Ziegel means 10th brick in English. But yeah, like I said too, it's not often you'll see a beer listed as a Helles Kellerbier, because most of the Kellerbiers that you come across in Franconia are you know, sort of blonde beers essentially. But yeah, the Kellerbier is essentially an unfiltered kind of yeasty lager. You do have the Zwickel as well, and there is another one that I'm forgetting too. But yeah, there are a few different Kellerbiers, but essentially these are more kind of yeasty lager beers actually. But yeah, I think this should be quite an interesting one. But apparently this one is done in the style, they say on the website that it's meant to be like a Bohemian Pilsner. And it's also got some Vienna malt in it as well, so potentially it's going to be a little bit sweeter. And it's got sapphire hops in it. So sapphire hops are actually very low alpha acid. They tend to come in between 3 and 5% alpha acid, and they're supposed to give you a little bit of tangerine as well actually, but I've always just found them kind of like slightly more spicy German noble hops actually. But yeah, we'll see how we get on with this, but very nicely presented. I think this is the only beer that Hans sent me that was in a can as well. So quite interesting that they're canning their beers so early on. But these guys do a variety of different styles. One of the styles I saw from them that I'd be very interested in is their red IPA, because that's not a style you find too often brewed by Central European breweries. But yeah, let's get this guy out then and we'll get on with the tasting then. A 4.8% Helles Kellerbier. So yeah, let's get it out and into the glass. And I will say straight away, I probably will moan that this beer is only in a 330ml can instead of being, you know, in a 440 or a half litre. I always complain about this when we get lagers in 330s because I just think it's too small. But yeah, that's just me. I understand why these guys do it though, because when they're only using a 2,000 litre kit, they kind of have to, you know, get as much out there, if you like, as they can. So using 330s is probably better for them at this stage in the business development, of course. But yeah, as you can see, the beer did pour with a little bit of head, but it's faded away to be pretty much nothing. So it poured with roughly a quarter finger of a frothy, I would have said creamy coloured head, but I didn't get enough of a look at it. There is just a little bit of a light ring around the edge of the glass. But yeah, overall, the head is pretty much nothing. I'm not sure exactly why it's faded so quickly, but it just goes like that sometimes. But in terms of colour, you can see this one is very much like a kind of bright golden straw yellow, which is kind of what you would expect from a Helles or a Kellerbier. It looks very much like a Munich Helles, this one actually. So yeah, looks very good. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. But overall, it looks very nice. It's got a little bit of that kind of natural haze to it. It's not the cloudiest of Kellerbiers that I've come across before, but you can certainly see there's quite a wee bit of kind of particulate matter floating around in this one, which is good. But yeah, should be quite nice this. So remember, the technical definition of a lager beer is, of course, cold temperature fermentation, bottom fermenting yeast. Usually it ferments between 8 to 12 degrees, of course, and ales tend to be 15 to 18 degrees, if I remember rightly, and those are top fermenting yeasts. But yeah, when it comes to the colour of your beer, that will be determined by 1, the type of malts that you use. Those usually determine the magnitude of your colour, and 2, the length of your wort boil. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. I will say that this beer is a little bit lighter than I would have thought it would be when you consider the fact that it's got Vienna malts in it, because usually I would have thought Vienna malts would give you a little bit more of a kind of amber colour, as we've seen from the Vienna lagers. So this beer is a little bit brighter than I thought it was going to come across when I learned that it had the Vienna malts in it. But there's probably a few different varieties of Vienna malts in there as well. But yeah, in terms of a Helles Kellerbier, it's really exactly what you'd expect. A nice kind of bright blonde yellow beer, and a little bit of kind of haziness to it. So yeah, nothing really untoward about that. But let's have a closer look at the aroma then, and just see how we get on. So let's have a look at that. Curious, very curious. Smells quite interesting actually. So you can certainly smell the nice kind of soft yeastiness out of this beer straight away on this one, and you do smell a little bit of that more kind of spicy character from the Sapphire hop, definitely. But let's focus on the yeasty and the malty side of the beer first, as we usually do. So yeah, backbone of this beer, as I said, it's got a lovely kind of, you can smell a little bit of the kind of sort of more crisp bready character underneath. So there's a lovely crisp white bread in there. There's a little bit of bread crust, which I can certainly enjoy, and there is a wee bit of that kind of more brown bready sort of thing from the kind of Vienna malts too. So you can smell a wee bit of graininess in the backbone there, but you can smell that sort of doughy, yeasty character from this one that you would expect of a Kellerbier or a Zwickel. But yeah, they're lovely styles, those actually. They're really underappreciated, but they are just very, very regional in Germany. In Germany in particular, actually, I'm not sure if they're common in Austria right enough, but I know that I'm pretty sure they originated in Franconia, in that northern region of Bavaria in Germany. Some awesome beers there actually. But yeah, you get that lovely kind of doughy bready note out of this one from the yeast, and it's very, very distinctive actually, and that kind of dominates the aroma a little bit. There's a teeny, you do get a teeny little bit of an almost clovey sort of banana type note there. It's almost got just a wee tiny little bit of a Hefeweizen character to it, this one, in terms of the yeastiness. But yeah, the backbone of this one, as I say, quite a crisp white bready note underneath, a little bit of a kind of bread crusty quality. But yeah, the aroma out of this one, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, it goes together really well actually. I'm just wondering, does this have wheat in it? Yeah, it does. Hefe. I was right. Yeah. So yeah, it says in the German. It doesn't actually say. It doesn't actually say in the English. It just says water, malted barley, hops, and yeast. And but it just says here, yeah, Wasser, Gerstenmalz, Hopfen, and Hefe. So Hefe is, I'm pretty sure, I thought Hefe was wheat. So yeah, no, that would be Weizen maybe. Maybe, not sure about that, but I do wonder. It does smell as if it's got a little bit of wheat in it, this one, because you get a wee bit of the smoothness in there, and it does just give you a wee bit of that kind of banana-y, kind of clovey sort of thing. So yeah, this is interesting in that sense, but that could well just be the yeast that they've chosen for this beer. But yeah, interesting malty backbone to this one. There are one or two little biscuity elements in there. You can smell a little touch of that McVitie's digestive sort of thing to it. But yeah, crisp white bready backbone, a little bit of bread crust, then the yeasty notes, a wee bit of that kind of banana clovey sort of thing to it, and a little bit of a biscuity sweetness, McVitie's digestive sitting on top of it. But anyway, I think that covers the malty, yeasty part of the beer. The hoppy side of things then, let's focus on that. The hoppy part of the beer, you get a little bit of that typical kind of earthiness that you always get from these sort of German noble type hops. As I say, you get a good bit of floral aromaticity to this one, because it's a little touch spicier than some of the other hops that you'll come across within that German sort of noble category, I should say. Then you've also got a little bit of that lighter grassiness in this one too. The grassiness has a teeny little bit of zestiness to it, but I find the grassiness quite smooth in this one. As I've said with noble hops, I find the German ones are quite bright, the Czech ones tend to be a little bit more spicy, and the Slovenian ones tend to be a little bit kind of more smooth, if you like. Austrian hops I don't have so much experience with, so that's something that I do need to maybe talk to Hans about and see if we can get some Austrian hopped beers to review. So yeah, that would be quite interesting. But yeah, on the fruity side of things then, I think we've covered the green component of the hops quite well. The fruity side of the beer is kind of what you would expect. It's got a little bit of a sort of, you know, peary, apple-y kind of thing to it, maybe a little touch of apricot as well, maybe even a little bit of like sultana or something like that. So yeah, a wee bit of a dried fruity sultana, a little bit of apricot, then you've got a more kind of oily, sort of slightly peary ester to this one, and then of course you've got the grassy notes to it as well. So yeah, I really like how this beer goes about its business in that sense. I think it works very, very nicely, for sure. But yeah, this beer goes about its business very, very nicely, I would say. So big thumbs up to Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty for the aroma on this one. But I think it is about time that we try this one then. So this one is the 10er Ziegel. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. A 4.8% Helles Kellerbier from Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty in the which district? In the Favoriten district. We've got to get that right for these videos. In the Favoriten district of Vienna, down in Austria. Once again, thank you to Hans for making this review possible. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers, and Prost. Oh yeah, that's pretty nice, I have to say. I can tell, I can say straight away, I think this one would be even kind of better on tap, even, you know, even kind of smoother and things like this. Yeah, it comes in the can, it comes across as very clean and very drinkable and things like this. I do think though, Kellerbiers, I think these are the sort of ones, yeah, they can travel okay in the bottles and the cans and things like this, but I think these beers are best enjoyed at source, if you like. And obviously it's a bit ironic me saying that, because I like sitting down with a beer and doing the videos and stuff like that. I love tasting different stuff. But yeah, I think Kellerbiers are one of the ones that you really will get the best out of them in the from the tap, because I mean, when you put it in a can or a bottle or whatever, it's going to kind of wetten up and things and not be as it's not going to be as kind of you know, smooth and yeasty and stuff like that. So yeah, that's definitely worth worth doing with this one. But yeah, I like how it goes about its business. This beer gets a big thumbs up from me, and it gives you what you would expect of both a kind of Helles and a Kellerbier. So yeah, solid beer from these guys. Definitely want to try a few more of them in the future, I'm sure. It's easy to drink. I'll need to be careful with this. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour for you a little bit then and just describe it properly. So straight away, across the middle of your palate in this one, you can feel that nice kind of crisp white bready character there. That just goes right across the middle of your tongue. That blankets the middle third and the back third of your palate. Absolutely. If you go to either end of the how would you say? If you go to either end of that middle third of your palate, you will get a wee bit more of a kind of bread crusty note in there, which I really like. But then on top of that, you can certainly feel, it does really feel that there's a wee bit of a kind of wheaty note there. It almost does feel as if you've got a little bit of a kind of wheaty layer just kind of sitting on top of that. It just feels that that's kind of smoothing out the bready character a little bit. But on top of that, you can feel the big kind of yeasty elements of this one. So yeah, the yeasty notes, it's kind of interesting that they spread into the middle third of your palate as well, because you get this kind of thicker, kind of more airy, yeasty layer sitting in the kind of middle third of your palate for sure. But yeah, as I say, crisp white bready notes underneath, soft white bread, a little bit of a kind of wheaty layer, and then as we you know, as you say, on top of that, that you do get that thicker kind of yeasty element in there. Then on top of it, you get just a little bit of the biscuity sweetness. You know, you can feel a wee bit of a concentrated brown sugar right in the middle of the palate, but it is more like a kind of, you know, concentrated biscuit. It's not like a caramel or anything. And on top of that, I get just a wee touch of like a kind of McVitie's digestive grainy biscuity sort of thing. It's quite a straight shooting beer, this one. It doesn't really deviate from what you would expect from the style, but it is, you know, nicely executed in that sense. So yeah, gives you everything you would want, absolutely. But that is the middle third of your palate in this one. And it's interesting as well because you've got all that yeasty character, but it still feels, you know, really clean in a sense. So yeah, it's interesting. It's drinkable, but it gives you all that yeasty character. So I like that about it for sure. But yeah, on the onto the back third of your palate then. On that border region, incidentally, between middle third and back third of your palate, you can feel there's a wee bit of a sort of bready, yeasty build up there, a little bit more kind of intense, grainy bread crust flavour. But yeah, into the back third of your palate there, you get more of the kind of white bready notes in there. There's a slightly thicker, the bread actually feels a little bit thicker, generally speaking, but then on top of that, you get the more airy, yeasty flavours out of the beer again. You do get a tiny, there is almost like a tiny little bit of a clovey type thing to the yeasty flavours in this beer, definitely. Maybe even a tiny little bit of the banana note, but yeah, you do get a wee bit of that in here. But if you start at the back of your palate, you can feel that the flavour is quite tall, but it condenses down as you come further forward. It condenses down as you come further forward, and then it kind of just put, you know, it's a little bit, and it gradually as you move into the middle third of your palate, you can feel that these flavours are a little bit more kind of condensed and just squashed together. But yeah, malt base on this one, and the yeasty character is really nice, what you would expect exactly of a Kellerbier. So yeah, interesting. So onto the hoppy side of things then. The back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of that kind of smooth earthiness in there. As you move further forward, it gets a wee bit herbal, but then as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate in this one, you do get a little bit more of the floral aromaticity. I wouldn't describe it as kind of being spicy though, it comes across as a little bit more bright in a sense, but then yeah, round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter and more, it is definitely a little bit more kind of lighter and grassy in a sense, and there's a wee touch of zestiness in there, which I very much enjoy as well. So yeah, the way that this goes together, I think I think is very, very nice. So yeah, green component on this one, really nicely executed. So yeah. Yeah, but I think it goes. I think it does work out very, very nicely on the. I think it works out really, really nicely on the kind of hoppy side of this one as well. The sort of smoothness of the yeasty, malty backbone and the hoppy character, I think, works very, very well in this one. But on the fruity part of the beer, it's quite interesting as well. So let's focus on that front third of your palate then. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, again you get a wee bit of a bready build up, and you can feel a wee bit of that more kind of intense bread crusty kind of element to it, which I do like. But then the base of that front third of your palate is quite similar to the middle third. You can feel a little bit of the smoother bready note in there, and just a little bit of a kind of bread crusty quality actually. So I like how that, I do like how that goes together in this one, that's for sure. But sitting on top of this, you have that nice kind of, you get a little bit of that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer, and I certainly can appreciate how that goes together. But yeah, on the how would you say, on the, if we look at the fruity side of the beer, then at the back of that front third of your palate, there's a little bit of that kind of sultana type quality, as I say, you know, the dried white green grapes. I always get asked what I mean by sultanas. There's a little bit of a sort of, there is a wee light touch of an apricot-y sort of thing in this, but as you move into the front half of that middle third of your palate, it's got a little bit more of a, it certainly has a little bit more of a kind of peary sort of thing to it. It's got a little bit more of an oily kind of peary thing, and maybe a wee tiny like spicy apple note, but just behind the front curve of the palate, maybe even a teeny little bit like a slightly limey note or something, just when you're getting it mixing in with those kind of more grassy esters coming out of the coming out of the hops too. But yeah, it's an interesting beer, this one, for sure. It's what you would expect from the style of this one. I think the further you go into the aftertaste, it does feel a little bit more kind of almost spicy in a sense. You get a wee bit of a kind of clovey character to it, and that's from the yeast. But yeah, I think it works out really nicely. This is a very nice, nice easy drinking beer, this one. I would have drunk a bit more of it in the review if it had been a 440 or a 500 right enough, but as I said earlier, I'm not going to moan about that because I know why they do that when they're such a kind of small volume brewery, if you like. So we'll let them away with that. But yeah, very nice example of the Kellerbier style. This one a little bit more spicy, I think, than some of the ones that I've come across before. But yeah, interesting for sure. Let's round off the review with the mouthfeel then. So yeah, mouthfeel wise, this beer, you know, it's very much kind of top end of light bodied, bottom end of mid bodied. Carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a little bit of an oily slickness to it, which I really enjoy. So yeah, nice big kind of oily slickness to it. But yeah, pardon me, it goes together very, very nicely. So yeah, it still feels quite clean at the same time as well though. But like we said, the malt base has a nice kind of smoothness to it. There's a little bit of graininess in there, a nice big bit of kind of yeastiness too, a little touch of sweetness. So the malt base is probably the most complex part of the beer, I would say. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I think this one's probably about 20 IBUs or something. It doesn't come across as overly bitter, but in fairness, when you move into the aftertaste, you do get a wee bit of the kind of spiciness from the sapphire coming out in this one. Interesting, I don't get the tangerine notes in this beer either that you're supposed to get from sapphire. That's another thing. And as we said, on the fruity side of the beer, a little bit of oiliness to it, a little bit of dryness too. But overall, it's nice, and it suits the rest. It suits the rest of the beer, especially the sort of tannin and apricot-y type things. But yeah, I like how this beer goes together. It gets a big thumbs up for me, and I'm quite curious to try a few of the other ones from Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty at some point in the future. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. So this one is the 10er Ziegel, 4.8% Helles Kellerbier from Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty in the Favoriten district of Vienna. Once again, thank you to Hans for making this review possible. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty as well. Do give me some other Austrian brewery recommendations that I should look at, and I'll talk to Hans about getting those at some point in the future. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out 10.50's social media as well, and I will catch you guys in the next review. And do give me some other Kellerbier recommendations. This is a style that I would like to explore a little bit more because I enjoy it, but as I say, you just don't come across them all that often. Thank you again for watching. Catch you guys in the next review. Slanje, Skål, cheers, prost, and do make sure you check out Bräuhaus Ten.Fifty from Favoriten in Vienna. Cheers.